This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.
Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, or Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, everyone. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With me this evening is my co-host as usual, it's JB Whitesnake. All right, John, how you going, mate?
Not bad. How's yourself, Peter?
Aye, excellent, buddy, excellent. It's good to see you and hear from you again, as always.
Good.
Right, so we've got a couple of things that we're just going to get chatting about. The first thing we'll talk about is, right, well, we can't really go anywhere without talking about the new law that's going to be getting introduced that will ban protests outside Holyrood. Now, well, what's your thoughts on it, John?
Well, it's very much, we were scheming about it and introduced it down in Westminster, and it's a retrograde step, and why shouldn't you be able to protest outside any parliament? Well, we're meant to be a democracy, so peaceful protests are right of any democracy. So why should it stop outside the Scottish Parliament? What's the reasons behind it?
I think it's very strange, if I'm honest, at the least, John. What I'm going to do is we're going to mention some of our previous guests on this show, John. One of them being Dave Llewellyn. And I'm doing a wee screen share at the minute. Well, I'm not doing a screen share at the minute. I'm going to do a wee screen share in a minute. And we'll share a video that Dave kindly done. It's got a wee bit of emotion in it.
Good afternoon, freedom fighters. It's a sad, sad, sad day. On the 23rd of March 2018, you were maybe one of the 5,000 people who joined us outside Holyrood Parliament when we built a human chain round the Parliament and a sheltron with 200 saltire shields to protect our Parliament from Westminster. And all the time, we didn't realise that the real enemy was actually inside our own Parliament. From the 1st of October, you will be able to be arrested for holding any kind of protest at Parliament. The thing was put up yesterday, and it was passed by statutory instrument today through Parliament without a parliamentary vote. So if you voted SNP 1 and 2, you've got what you voted for. That is what you voted for. And at the end of the day, it's not going down without a fight. We've got until the 1st of October to go up there and make as much bloody noise as we can. And as I suggested, we start next Thursday. Democratic outrage, 11 AM, outside Holyrood Parliament. Join us, bring whatever you've got that makes noise, air horns, whatever you can get. Let's make the bastards in there know exactly what's going on, and let's just do this.
So, what's your thoughts, John? That's Dave.
Man's no wrong. No, he's passionate and the man's no wrong. I can't see the reason for this. It's a retrograde step, as I say, and it's just mirroring what they did in Westminster. So what have they got to fear against peaceful protest?
Aye, it's baffling. I mean, you're just the soundbite man for the SNP down at Westminster. Him that speaks really well repeatedly about the same thing, but nothing happens about it. Oh, Ian Blackford, aye. I'm sure he tweeted about his pretty much his disagreement when it was happening in Westminster with the policing bill, whatever it was that they were introducing down there. I'm sure Mr. Blackford tweeted his disapproval of that. So for it to be introduced here in Scotland, I don't know. There's counter arguments saying that it was the Unionists that introduced it in Scotland, but if that was the case, why was it not done before?
Yeah, no, I don't understand.
So I'm not buying that one, and I'm starting to question some of the motives this current administration.
wonder why the First Minister hasn't been asked by the media why this has been done. I've not actually. Has she been asked by the media?
I've not seen anything, John. I don't know. So again, without like nailing my colours to the mast here, I've not seen anything from the First Minister on it. Again, if it was something that was detrimental to her side, you'd have thought that she'd be screaming blue murder about the fact that it's been introduced against her will. So that's how I'm balancing it. I'm balancing it with the fact that, well, if it was Westminster that introduced it, then the SNP would be going after nut. Now, the fact that the SNP aren't going after nut leads me to believe that, well, is it because they're happy for this to go ahead? And why they're happy for it to go ahead? Because it goes against everything that Scottish people have the right, sovereign right to do, and protest and peaceful protest is one of those rights, John.
Yeah, I've seen it somewhere, and shoot me down if it's wrong, but someone actually questioned whether they had the authority to do it in Scotland. They'd actually need permission for the Priti Patel of all people.
Well,
as Home Secretary, what the hell she's meant to be.
And I think that'd be another strike against the independence movement that should probably give it, you know.
I don't know, mate. Don't know.
Right. So anyway, that's that bit dealt with. What have we got coming up next? We are going to talk about the conferences for this weekend, mate.
Excellent.
Did you happen to catch any of the conferences at all?
I've just seen bits on Twitter, Peter, and it's interesting that both Alba and SNP at the same time. I thought they were trying to keep them a couple of weeks apart, as most political parties do, but hee-haw. I used to be on used to watch the SNP conference on Council Telly, like, but that seems to have bitten the dust. And I think Harry Potter was on anyway, so I ended up watching that because there wasn't anything positive for it. Independence coming out. Harry Potter at the moment.
but they're famous now, John, so they don't go on Council Telly, you know what I mean? The SNP's online conference was £36 for members to attend, and again, I don't know the details of that, John. I just know that that's a figure that's been mentioned and it's been confirmed that it's £36. So I don't know if that allowed you the chance to have a saying what the next couple of years is going to bring, or if it just allowed you to give a I've known the First Minister since she was 16 statement. I don't know if maybe it's been one of the ones.
I'd want a year subscription to OnlyFans for that amount of money.
Right, now we must now say John is quite clearly joking, because OnlyFans is something that's been banned now, right? So John's quite clearly joking.
All right, I don't know.
Aye, mate, aye.
Come on, right, there you go.
We are aware of it. Well, I'm certainly only aware of it through stories I've heard about it, John. But thanks for showing us that you're keeping yourself up to speed with the fans groups. Right. Next point that we're going to chat about. So the conferences, the Alba conference. I've seen a lot from it, John. I've seen Tommy Sheridan doing a speech. I've seen Grouspeter Gareth Wardell doing that. He got an honorary life membership. Who else was the other one that Michelle Ferns spoke.
Right.
She's going to be we're going to be doing another show with Michelle quite soon. This is an exclusive to everybody. Michelle did say that after the conference she would come back on and we would chat. And she said she would try and let her hair down a wee bit and we could have a laugh. So I was absolutely delighted with that. So we have arranged to try and chat this week to see if we can get something sorted out. So Michelle spoke, and I'm trying to think who the other one was that spoke. Well, Dave spoke as well. Dave, we've already seen a video for Dave. So I'm going to try and show you the Tommy Sheridan one now. So give a wee second, John.
What a pleasure it is to come to a conference and hear the leaders of the Party of Independence call for the mobilisation of the people for independence. It is with great pleasure that you listen to Alex and Kerry, who moved this motion, making the point that it's not enough to be for independence. We have to build for independence. We have to win the arguments. You see, the party that has unfortunately left the scene, that party perhaps missed the advice of the likes of Michael Foot when talking about his own party, the Labour Party, when he said that it was a crusade or it was nothing. The SNP, in my opinion, is a cause or it is nothing. And unfortunately, they have abandoned that cause. This party has to
go. Right. So Tommy Sheridan was. Oh, what about Janie Godley, mate?
I don't know what she's meant to have said, but she's apologised and whatever else, but she's meant to have said something offensive and then apologised for it, so.
She's been really offensive to a lot of different communities, for what I've read and heard. Again, if those voice clips have been confirmed as actually being her. But as you say, she has come out and made an apology about certain things. So if she's apologising, then you would tend to think that she's accepting the responsibility. However, it doesn't absolve you of all things that you've done wrong.
Yeah, well, basically,
she's just sorry she's got caught.
Yeah. And she's the face of the Scottish Government's COVID-19 strategy thing as well, isn't she, at the moment? She's appearing in adverts for that.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that she's been pulled for that, John.
All right, okay.
She's been pulled for that because it was there was one that somebody else here. This was Alex Salmond arriving at the second day of the Alba conference, and this was Clem Fandango for Twitter that shared this. This was Clem that I was saying about his about their Scottish history.
Oh, aye.
Really good, informative pieces. Right, so screen share. So this was Alex Salmond arriving at the conference earlier on today. You bit of scaffolding that there. Looks as if he's building a new country.
Good luck.
Can't quite make out what he was saying there, mate, to be honest.
Yeah.
With the face mask and that one, but that was him arriving at the conference today. So thanks to Clem Fandango for that. Right, what other ones? I had some other things that we were going to be talking about today, mate, but I can't seem to be locating did I bookmark them? Oh, these are older ones. Right, they're older ones. Right, we'll talk about them in a wee minute. Anyway, we're going to talk about one of your videos now. Or not one of your videos, a video that you shared. And it's about well, it's about Brexit really, mainly, and it's the global view. So
that's interesting.
We'll put this one on for our viewers to have a wee look at if they've not seen it, and we'll discuss it in a wee second, mate, all right?
It is a negative supply shock in that you are ruining your competitiveness specifically with your largest trading partner. It is a fact of life. It's one of the few things in economics we can talk about as a fact of life, that gravity applies. What is gravity? You trade far, far more with the countries you are contiguous with and the countries that you historically have interacted with than with countries that are far away. That is true for the US in the context of NAFTA. That is true for the UK. no matter how much there's been a special relationship, no matter how much the UK tries to be a global exporter, the fact is you've got more than twice as much trade with the EU, more than twice as much investment with the EU as you do with the US, or let alone the rest of the world. As David Cameron pointed out when Prime Minister while I was at the Bank of England, the UK does more trade with Ireland than they do with the BRIC countries combined, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So this is negative, full stop. Additionally, because the UK had this special status as the less regulated, less low tax, English-speaking, rule of law place, not that all of that was in question elsewhere in the EU, and certainly Ireland was similar, but had this special place, and people liked living in London, you had a huge amount of investment in the UK as a platform to enter the EU because you were part of the EU deal. That goes away. It may not go to zero. It will gradually come down. I see a representative, for example, of Toyota Motor Corporation here. Toyota, Nissan, Ford all have disproportionate amounts of their European auto production in the UK. All have indicated that they will not expand those production, will probably decline those production points in the UK when the UK loses full market access. There's a distinction between a trade deal and the access to the single market. The single market is covering all those things that aren't simply the price of goods off the boat. It's whether your auto meets safety standards. It's whether your chemicals or your food additives have been recognized. It's whether you fit standard sizes of various objects. It's whether your accountants are accredited. It's whether your university degree is recognized in other countries' universities. The question is, since the UK primarily is an exporter of high-end products and of services especially, financial services, business services, media services, cultural services, educational services, how much do they lose by not being in the single market, even if you have a trade deal? And the answer is a lot. Most of the financial regulation that affected the UK was set in the UK and was not set by Brussels. And while the UK was in the EU, they had a predominant voice in the setting of those regulations in Brussels. Now, there will be no such interest. And that is why we are seeing, on estimates of my colleague Simeon Jankov, who runs the financial markets group at the London School of Economics, a third of city jobs, the economic and financial jobs in the City of London, will be moving to Dublin, Frankfurt, New York. Now you can say, but this is for centuries. Over the long term, it'll be better. So then you have to think about what's wrong with the EU economy versus the UK economy. So most of us who see there being problems in the EU economy as a whole, or at least the Euro area economy, because frankly, Eastern Europe isn't doing so bad, tend to focus on 5 things. We say there's over-regulation of labor markets, there's heavy hand of regulation and other things, there's an excessive welfare state, there's demographic decline, and there's the problems of being associated with the Euro membership. Now, if you look at that list, 4 of those 5 do not apply to the UK, even as members of the EU. The UK has a looser labor market regulations than anyone else in the EU. The UK has a smaller welfare state than anyone else in the EU. The UK was a beneficiary in a demographic sense of people from Poland and France and Portugal and elsewhere and Romania coming and helping balance out the aging of their society. And the UK was, of course, not a member of the European monetary system. Even if the UK were to stay in the EU, none of that would change. So what is it getting? So you're balancing essentially non-financial regulation in certain areas being excessive versus all the other stuff I spoke about, and giving up the ability to affect or push back against those regulations in future because you will no longer be a member. Leave the rhetoric aside. Look at the reality. This is not a very good deal in economic terms. Now, again, you can always say, well, this is about sovereignty. They want to do it. Again, I'm not fit to say that. That's fine. But you should be aware that there is no economic upside to this.
So, John, it's the reality that the UK doesn't really want to share with people, isn't it?
No, that's right. It's the old saying that you wave a Union Jack, it makes everything all right. I mean, and the British media are utterly complicit in this. They're every bit as complicit in the Brexit fraud as the Tory government is. It's all a sham and a fraud of biblical proportions. And all these ones I used to see on Twitter scheming about Brexit this and Brexit that, they're all silent. They're all trying to head on it wasn't them that done it. But you voted for it, you own it, mate. End of.
Aye, it's a bit of a shocker when it's put across like that. And I think, as you say, I'm starting to see a lot of the ones that were dead brazen about Brexit, not saying as much about Brexit.
That's right. We
the
hold all the
ones-
cards and all that day one and everything.
Aye, and Brexit isn't getting the credit that it's due here.
Well, Brexit's disappeared. They're not saying Brexit, and nobody in the media says Brexit.
That's it.
It's now supply chain issues. They're unwinning that. They don't use Brexit. They say supply chain issues. That gets the gullible to think, oh, it's something that's not to do with Brexit, and it's 100% to do with Brexit. So they're feeding the shite to the gullible as usual.
John, we know, mate. We know, right? We know that every excuse that they've given. I mean, they're got to be giving out HGV and lucky bags and shit like that early next week.
You don't need to get out of reverse.
You've got to get an HGV license and a bar of chocolates in. It'll be like a Wonka surprise.
They're also saying these HGVs won't be recognised in the continent because they're downgrading it. It can be a one-legged, one-armed bloody baboon that can do it.
Mate, well, here you go, right? I'll let out a wee secret here. Well, I don't think it's a secret. I think I may have actually said it before. I used to be a driving examiner, right, for the DVLA, and it was hard enough for people to pass a driving test, right? And then I seen some of the ones that had passed their driving test that were all right. I mean, when they passed, it was like, oh. Then you see them like maybe a few months later, and they're racing about the streets and getting just being nuisances and things like that, you know. I dread to think what will happen is if they just give away HGV licenses to people, there'll be carnage on the streets.
Carnage motorways. How many folks are going to kill or joke apart?
That's just my opinion, mate. There'll be carnage. So it's a big no for that for me. And the fact that Brexit, is that really a benefit of Brexit? The fact that they can't transport anything anywhere. They've not got enough drivers. That the NHS is failing. That there's not enough food on shelves. That there's not enough test tubes or blood vials or whatever it is for the NHS. There's going to be a shortage of medication. See all of these things that people warned of years in advance of this. And we're told it was Project Fear. The same as it brings to light for me indie ref, John. All the scare stories that you heard, and if you were switched on enough, then you could get most of them. Know what I mean? But some of them were. I mean, there's a lot of things to watch if you're of an independent point of view. If you're independent minded, if you're just coming over to independence, and you have a look at, there's certain things that you should watch. London Calling. I'm trying to think of other ones. I can't remember the name yet, but I've got a link to it here. But again, there's certain things you should watch. I'll post the links later on the page. There's about 5 hours worth of watching that I think are essential to get you up to speed. And it's if you're not into that kind of a thing, it's very boring, right? If you're into that kind of a thing, it's very intriguing, right? In my opinion. So it gets the wheels racing, right? So I'll post a link to that later. But there's certain things that I would suggest that you watch. I think we should be trying to do a wee bit more we've got an anniversary special coming up. It's Indy F1, the anniversary Indy F1 on the 18th of September. So we're doing a special way, and we're getting Barhead Boys' story to Indy Ref and beyond, right? So we'll be doing that next week, John. Is there anything that we should be looking out for over the course of the next couple of weeks? Oh, there's a protest outside Parliament, by the way. I know Dave mentioned it, but I just want to reinforce it. It's on the Thursday, the 16th at 11 AM.
Right.
So for anyone that wants to attend that and lend your voice to the disappointment, and it's basically because of the law that's getting introduced to make it illegal for people to protest outside Parliament. So I just to reinforce that. There was a speech for Craig Murray's wife at the Alba conference.
Right.
Now, if you give me a wee second, I think I might be able to share, because I've done a wee bit of editing with some software, mate. So I might actually be able to share the speech on the edit that we've done.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I had intended to speak in person, but have been unavoidably detained. It is really not very pleasant to be locked in a small cell for over 22 hours a day. However, I have this consolation. However many months they keep me in here, I am most unlikely to miss any progress on the Assembly's 11-point plan. I am proud to be a founder member of ALBA. ALBA is now the only mass membership party in Scotland, which is an independence party and not a devolutionist party. The Scots are a people with the inalienable right of self-determination under the UN Charter. There is no Westminster law or no London-based court which can constrain that right. It is for us, and us alone, to decide how to assert our independence. The time for that is upon us. I believe ALBA will be a truly radical party. I hope it will return the land of Scotland to its common people. The current so-called land reform is a disgrace. It has paid millions of pounds to the Duke of Buccleuch for marginal land for which he had little use. Real land reform will give land to the people without rewarding those whose ancestors stole it in the first place. Now, we do not all agree on everything. I have a very different view to most ALBA members on how to reconcile the social trend away from binary and rigid gender distinctions with protection of women's rights. But if any two people agree on absolutely everything, one of them is not thinking. Good and well-motivated people may sincerely hold different policy views. The very notions of respect for dissident opinion and freedom of speech are under sustained attack. No member of any political party should face insult, abuse, and threats for holding a position different to the leader. That the SNP has forgotten this is what brings most of you here. To move forward together to independence does not mean we have to march in goose steps. The ability of the Scottish Government to employ the police and Crown office to pursue political vendettas is a major constitutional flaw. Their willingness to do so is a black page in Scottish history. How scared of ideas do you have to be before you start imprisoning writers? My being here is not a demonstration of the strength of the Scottish establishment. It is a sign of its weakness. Alba needs to be not just a breath of fresh air, but a strong blast. The attempt to hijack popular support for independence to quite other ends will be blown away. It is for us to take the banner of national freedom for Scotland's people. We shall not fail.
Just stopping that there because the rest of that's just an ovation, John. So that was Craig Murray's wife giving a speech at the Alba conference yesterday. Very passionate and quite humorous, I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Given the situation that he finds himself in. We've both said before we don't agree with his imprisoning, John. So there's no hiding that fact. You see his wife and his son standing there, and some of the pictures that you kind of caught in the background. I don't know if you've seen them in the background.
Yeah.
It kind of it's very, very emotive and thought provoking. The fact that they end these speeches about jailing writers. I worry for the future of Scotland with the law that's just been passed, with the recent history of what's happening. And again, it's all under the government of Nicola Sturgeon. So it's not a good, for me, it's not a good view of Scotland for the inside. I mean, it's all right wowing all these big wigs and multinationals that don't pay attention to the real goings on in Scotland, John. But for me, it's worrying. It's worrying that I've kind of marched, and not just me, and people, yourself before, delivered leaflets and done all of these things for the betterment of our country, and yet I don't see as any further forward. The only thing I see increasing in Scotland is food banks, and for me, as a socialist and as a scheme boy, John, you know what I mean? As a scheme boy, it's the margins like that I feel it for. I know how. I mean, somebody shared something on Twitter yesterday, I believe it was, John, and I've asked them to appear on a future show, and it was just basically the impact of their life growing up, the sacrifices, the fact that they knew that they would hide letters for their mum about trips that the school was going on because they knew their mum was already stressed about getting them a uniform for school. And they wouldn't take a meal on certain days because they knew that everybody in the family was to get, and things. I've been in amongst that, John. I grew up in that. I mean, that was my upbringing. So for me, that's the thing that I want to try and avoid as a nation. And I can see us going back there. I can see us going back to fighting for food. And when I say fighting for food, I don't mean actually just going out in the street and fighting for it, but everybody's struggling to get the things that we've become used to through negligence and greed on the rich people. And it's the introduction of, well, there was another thing that Westminster are bringing in, John, and you had mentioned it like in the warm-up, no, that we do a warm-up, but just before we started, about the introduction or the increase of the national insurance
That's correct. Yeah,
Right,
it's shocking that you'll now find the working poor in Scotland are now going to be paying a increased tax to basically help fund Tory welfare down south, or people who have, in comparison to Scotland, extreme wealth. They've got big private houses, they've got a lot of money in the bank, and the Tories now see fit to, because they know nobody in Scotland's going to vote for them, so just keep taxing them. And this should be another big wake-up call for independence. I mean, now they're just, excuse the language, but they're just ripping the pish now. And if that doesn't get people demanding independence, why should we be paying for wealthy Tories down south so they don't have to pay for universal care, their welfare, when they get into care in homes and such like? We're going to be subsidised now. Boris is trying to say, oh, Scotland will be compensated in some way or other for it. But let's remember, this is the swine that put 350 million inside your budget, and guarantee what they say with one hand is taking away with another. And it'll basically putting Scotland's balance of payments, making Scotland look bad again, because that's what they want to do, to make it as unattractive as possible.
Hi, John. Sorry about the interference here. I clicked on the wrong button. Just my usual, mate. Try to prepare. It's becoming very obvious, is the way I'll put it across, that obviously the Tories know the impact and who's going to be affected most by this. So you're getting targeted now. It's the Hunger Games.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the Hunger Games, and this is the approach to it. But this is your 80-seat majority, folks. And if you keep on voting for them, they're going to keep on doing it. And it's going to get worse. And the margin, well, that's it. I'm just putting a message. The margins are going to get closer until it gets to you, because it will get to you. You know what I mean? And it's this one where, I know, I'm all right, Jack. No, I'll get to you, right? But that's what you get for voting them in. Take a leaf out of Scotland's book. Don't vote for them. Wise up. They're talking piss, right? And here's another thing about folk talking piss, right? We're in First Minster, right? On the amount of times mandates that she's had and the amount of times that she said we're going for independence, just give us a fucking date, man. Right? I'm sorry for being as blunt, right? No, actually, I'm not sorry. Right? The thing is, just give us a date. Give something to look to. A lot of people have said this before, that if we've got something to work towards, then you're going to start pulling everybody together. There's a lot of squabbling, as we both noticed, John. We both noticed it, and this no being an SNP member and no being an ALBA member and no being a member of a political party allows me to say this, that I see it on all the sides, right? The thing I will say is that as long as I'm doing it against the Tories, then I'm accepted by everybody, right? If I'm doing it against the Tories and I'm doing it against the SNP or I'm doing it against ALBA, then I'm not accepted by half or the other half. Know how it goes, John? Know what I mean? Even though that I know, because the thing that gets me the most is that when folk call you a Tory, John, right? Because like, I don't like that, right? Let's just put it that way. I don't like that. That's a pet hate of mine, right? Somebody said that to me in the street. We'd probably be having words. Know what I mean? What? Right? It's one of the ones that just gets you, right? Because you do everything to kind of get away from being the Tories, right? And we don't vote for them, and we absolutely despise what they represent and the ideology that they've got, right? I do anyway. So when you're kind of trying to be a wee bit self-critical and the order to improve where the movement is or where this is or where that is, it just doesn't go down well. So I can see it for either side, that this one says that, and it's just like schoolboy stuff, it's like playground stuff, get a buy, right? But First Minster, give a date, and give us something to pull together towards, because I'm sure I've heard, well, Alex Salmond, before the elections and the Scottish elections, advocated for SNP1 and ALBA 2. I'm sure I've since heard them advocate for the independence parties to work together. And I know other people have said the same or similar. Comfy Slippers, Pete Wishart, put out a tweet saying that the ALBA members would have some way to go before and it's like, well, hold on. Your leader's introducing laws that mean we can't protest. Also introducing GRA that is very, very divisive and a lot of people are against. A lot of the women's rights groups are against it. There's a lot of things happening, and like, you can't just expect, well, we're in government, so do what we're asking or else that's it. I mean, they might expect that of their own members, but surely you can be critical, the same as if we're critical of the Tories for how it's impacting Scotland. If Scottish parties are doing it and it's impacting Scotland in a negative way, surely we can be critical of them and try to, like, well, you've seen how this is coming across here from a neutral perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Aye, so it's a bit of a pisser. Right, what else have we got, John?
I think we've just about done it all, mate, for the night.
Aye, I think that's us. Right, well, aye, we'll lead on for that by saying then we've got a couple of specials coming up. One with Barhead Boy, which is Anniversary, it's titled. So look out for that. That'll be on the 18th. We'll be doing that and getting out on the 18th. We might have a two-parter with Michelle Ferns coming up.
Very good.
Where we're talking about she never got the deputy gig at the Alba party. It was Kerry McCaskill, which a lot of people kind of was expecting. I think he was the favourite, to be fair. So that's everything for Tweed Street Scotland occupied, for Satirical Saltire, for myself, Cinnamon Bridges, for JB Whitesnake. On you go, John. It's up to you, mate.
Nice one. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Come and watch us again, because we're the most ill-informed, petty folk you'll ever know. But we want independence.
See, satire off the scale, right, even to the death. I love it, mate. Right, and on that note, we're going to say good night. Good night, John.
Cheers. Take care, buddy. See you again, pal.
Right, catch you later, folks.
This is Tweed Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweed Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.